Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello and welcome, Diane. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and I know we have a lot to discuss.
I certainly believe we do. So before we dive in, let people know. So where in this lovely world are you and what's your business with dogs?
Well, I am located in Langley, Washington, on beautiful Whidbey Island, which I call paradise. And what I have to do with dogs is that I actually am really focused on stress as my research, but I have dealt with behavior problems for years and years and years, all sorts of dogs, all sorts of breeds. Actually starting when I was 18 years old with Diane's Dog Obedience School, and it's all evolved to 1996 when Karen Pryor came out with Clicker, and then positive training took off, and I was all on board for that because I hated what I was seeing with dogs being hurt and their well-being not being considered at all. And my dad actually was an aversive trainer, and he had a kennel, and he trained Schutzhound and Canine military, and so I watched that roll out and was not always pleased with that. And so that led me to my own business that I went into full-time, working just with behavior problems after my career. And I've been in this business for 25 years now, Canine Transformations Learning Center. And what I see are a lot of stressed dogs. Because they have to acclimate to our human life. And that's not always what we think it might be, because we don't speak the dog's language most of the time. And that's really how it rolled out, because I've been really working with dogs since I was in 4th grade, and a reactive dog. And that got me interested in reactivity and behavior problems.
Wow. So many questions. So,
Oh.
wow. So you've seen this world evolve over the last few decades, really. So
Yeah.
what's the biggest change you've observed in, I don't know, I would imagine dogs are more stressed today than they were maybe 30 years ago. Is that true? Or what changes have you seen?
When you talk about change and decades, which um, I used to take my Cocker Spaniel off lead, riding my bike into town, never thought anything about it, never, had to worry about what she would be doing. And she was reactive, and she would just follow me and listen to me when I was kind to her. And so the biggest change that I'm seeing is that, we're adding all this equipment, and maybe dogs are getting frustrated and over-aroused, and that's why we're seeing a lot of what we call reactivity and aggression, because the dog is speaking to us and telling us that something is missing in their lives. And we want to, have them comply to what we want them to do. And that can be aversive or it can be positive. It's your choice which road you're going to take, because positive is better. And I can tell you, I've seen so many dogs that were trained that just look like robots. And I don't like seeing that robotic effect from a dog that just tell me what to do, and then I'll do it. I like to see that joyful dog coming out, and I think that's what we're seeing. And that is not sitting well with a lot of people who don't know anything else other than I have to do the obedience. I have to make my dog mind. Well, no, it's taking a turn and the pendulum is swinging the other way.
Mm. So when let's just clarify the terminology, because I have a sense that sometimes reactivity, different people understand different things. How would you, what, like when you say reactive, what does that look like?
It looks like things that are in the environment that the dog might react to, like sounds or cars, vehicles, service people, just so that they become maybe over-aroused and frustrated that they can't get to that dog. Is of course a dog, or they see a cat or a cow, and they just become reactive. So we have to be careful of the terminology. You're very right in saying on what we use, because we have to understand that why our dog is reactive, what in the environment is causing that. Too many distractions can lead to that reactivity, whereas aggression is scarier.
And are they related, or is one the logical consequence of the other? Not necessarily, right?
Can be. I think reactivity that turns to aggression is a higher level of reactivity, where you are dealing with stress that has become acute or chronic. And the difference is acute stress spikes and then takes days to come down, but it does come down. And chronic stress spikes and never comes down. And that's where you have your health problems, your aggression. The dog is just responding negatively to the environment. So that's reactivity out of control.
Do you think there's more of that now than there used to be?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we hear about it more now. And was it there before? Probably, but we were dealing with dogs differently than today. And like I said, we're applying all this equipment. We're not letting the dog adjust to certain things, and we're letting them become frustrated and over-aroused. And I've seen that in my German Shepherd puppy, who had 4 owners before me by 4 months old. And so I was dealing with a puppy that over-aroused easily, and when he became over-aroused, he redirected his aggression. So that's when we're talking about he's reacting, he's becoming over-aroused, and he becomes highly frustrated, and then he redirects aggression, right? Then it becomes, he's biting me, he ripped my coat, and all kinds of things. He doesn't do that anymore. I'm thinking, this puppy is going to grow into an 85, 95, 100-pound dog. I can't have this dog doing that at that weight and that age. So, and he doesn't anymore. But I asked myself why he was doing this. And with 4 owners, there's reasons why.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I thought maybe because like a lot of people live in apartments now where, I mean, like this is part of my story with these ones here.
Yeah.
Those I used to live in a historic part of town in south of Spain. And I didn't even realize until I had Mr. Hypersensitive, like very sensitive. And
Yeah.
he was like kind of like literally sort of on edge the entire time. And I realized when we were away, that's when I realized, like, oh my God, he's a totally different dog. Like he's on information overload the entire time. And I moved twice so that he'd have a calmer life, right? So there's definitely seems to be the environment, and people, I think when I look at my grandparents, like nobody in an apartment in the middle of town would have even thought of getting a dog. Like a dog needs space. Like now we're sort of different. And I'm also very curious what from what you did with your German Shepherd puppy. Like somebody might go like, oh God, I have a dog like that. So
And they
how
get put.
can I help them chill out or relax more?
they do get put down, but I've dealt with dogs like this. That's my whole career, very dogs with a lot of behavior problems and anxiety and stress. And so when you're dealing with something like that, you have to know what you're doing, and the normal companion dog owner doesn't, and they become afraid because they take it personally that the dog is attacking them, right? When they're really not. They're trying to talk to you and say, something's not right here, and I don't feel good in this situation. I feel closed in. So the first thing I taught him to do was to touch, target touch, instead of grab, bite, pull. So that was a process. But now he'll give me a bump, like a nose bump, instead of the teeth don't come out. We're not ripping jackets. We're not doing anything. He's 17 months old. And he's becoming a wonderful, wonderful family member. And it is a step-by-step process. And so that's what I do. One of my other specialties is resource guarding and multi-dog households fighting. I tend to like those cases, and I love dealing with dogs that can't deal with life. Very much like a mental health professional, or dealing with trauma. There are several trainers that do that, and I happen to be one of them, and I love that because I understand what they're trying to say. I think we don't listen enough to our dogs. So that's important.
I agree. I agree. So, I mean, are there sort of certain things that you see over and over that people misinterpret or overlook?
Yes, there's so many things. I mean, it depends on what you're looking at and what behavior you're looking at. So if you want to pick a behavior.
Well, let's just take an example. Let's just take a real life example. A good friend of mine, well, she just was just recovering from a hand injury because she has an English Bull Terrier. He's a bit over 2 years old, a little bit deaf on one ear, so I think that probably doesn't help. So I've seen him on Zoom calls, like, is a big chunky boy, and he gets overexcited. And when he doesn't want to go home, he gets snippy. And so now apparently lately he started to go after joggers or people on a bicycle and actually nips and ankles. So that's how she actually ended up with, because she saw somebody in the distance. She said, oh my God, I thought he might go off and bite them in the ankle. So she grabbed the collar and he did a little twist. So that's how that happened, right? So, but that kind of, so he's obviously gets over-aroused, and then he's got a big mouth, so he's bitten her in the nipped her, like not like bitten, but like when he kind of doesn't want to go home, he'll go, and so he's nipped her. She's had bruises in her belly and on her hands, and he's nipped other people in the ankles.
Yeah, that's a real situation that you have to really dial it back, because he is becoming over-aroused. And he sounds like a smart boy, because a lot of times with frustration and over-arousal, these dogs are wicked smart and they know what they want and what they want to do. So she just has to dial it back. She has to go backwards, back to kindergarten, and start retraining this, and not take these long walks that she's taking. And I hear it all the time. Well, that's my sanity. I have to take the walk. Well, you take the walk. Leave the dog home.
I think she does these long walks because she says he needs it to kind of get his energy out. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Take shorter walks and avoid that arousal level. Teach him that it's fun to go back home. Okay, so that, let's say, I like to call it, some people call it spider walks. I call it A to B to C, A to Z walk. So I go point A to B and I walk that 10 times back and forth. And then that's our walk. We're done. We don't go to the park and walk for miles and miles and miles because this dog is not ready to do that.
Hmm.
We want to stay below the arousal levels. Maybe rent a sniff spot. I don't know if they have them in the United Kingdom, but we have sniff spots here where people rent out places for reactive dogs, aggressive dogs, that they can go and run their heart out without worrying about any other dogs or any other people around. Find places where this dog can get its arousal out and frustration. It doesn't have to be a leash walk. Some enclosed area that might be different, you know, experience and environment for the dog. Very important. So she just needs to dial it back, teach him what else to do instead of arousing at what he's seeing. And believe me, I've been there, done that thousands of times. And so it does work. You have to be diligent about it, and you have to understand that you don't have to drag the dog wherever you go, because you're just teaching him to accelerate that behavior instead of learning what else he can do with that behavior.
I mean, I've seen I've seen him like at Zoom meetings when he's like, and next thing she goes like, oh my God, he's eating the blanket. Right? So he's
Yeah.
very much, I kind of also knows when, like, how to demand her attention, right? So she's on the Zoom call and he's sort of supposedly sitting there quietly, and then he gets stuck into the blanket.
Yeah, he's got a demanding personality, obviously. She probably should do a stress release process with him and make sure that he's getting enough rest. It sounds like he's getting over aroused at a lot of different things. And so, and she needs to calm down and dial back a little bit, and not respond to those things that he's really doing, because we want to respond to that. I walk away. And then when he stops doing what he's doing, I say, good boy. And then I can reward what else I want him to do. And then we can practice that, because I want him to be in a frame of mind that makes the retention of what I'm teaching stick. Otherwise yeah, and that's a whole process. So a systematic process that she should be going through. She has to know where to start and what to do next and what to do next and what to do next,
And I can see how the walk is actually the hardest piece, because when in the house, like you can go and like my big girl here, little Mrs. Polar Bear Spanish Mastiff, when she was sort of adolescent, she got her moments when she would, and so when I do it, like I did that, I just kind of walk away, and then she'd go like, all right then. And it was quite easy. But if you're outside, right? If she was, and she's always been good outside, but like I'm imagining if she was to go to kind of go up and jump up on other people, it's like, yeah, I can't just walk away, right? I have, like I have to do something. So it's almost like I have to make sure I don't put her in that situation.
Exactly.
Where I have to then like literally like, drag her away, or have to give her the attention I don't really want to give her.
There's a lot more that has to happen before that. And I was referring to in the house. Don't walk away from big problems. You're just running damage control when an arousal like that occurs. So you have to know where to be in the process to avoid arousal. You see what I mean? You have to stay on the other side of arousal so that you get the normal stress spikes that come right back down. It's okay to be stressed, it's normal, but the spikes need to come back down, and the dog has to feel more comfortable. So some dogs are just over aroused just thinking about going for a walk. So you would just walk from your door to the end of your property and back and forth 20 times, and that is your walk. And if he can handle it, then you can add another point. And then you can walk back and forth, and then you add another point, and so on until you're up to 2 mile walk with no arousal and no frustration. This dog that you're talking about really does need a stress release program. And so in my book, there is a systematic pathway, and it teaches the dog to be on the proper, we get them on the proper nutrition, and you're checking for health issues to make sure that that's not what's causing this. Is he in pain? A lot of dogs who are over arousing, they're in pain. And so why is he grabbing the leash? To keep going on the walk, or just to keep moving, or is he feeling some pain? But beyond that, then you want to address sensory, all using a dog's senses at home, and toy play, because there's a lot of different things you can do to exercise that dog without actually taking this walk until he's ready, until you can manage his arousal points or not even see them at all, because they will diminish and then go away. He has to learn to relax. That's very important. A lot of people don't understand that their dogs need to relax. They need to sleep deeply, and deep REM during the day, depending on the dog's age, 2 times for adult dogs and up to 4 times for puppies and seniors. So it varies, and they need their rest. And then the physical stimulation can be something like Sarah Fisher's ACE, or Mari's movement puzzles. And there's so many things out there that you can do with your dog that doesn't require over arousal, but it actually brings the arousal down, and they still are getting satisfied for the physical movement, using their senses, all of it. And one thing that we fail at is teaching our dogs problem solving. That's very rare that I'll say, what do you do to teach your dog to problem solve? Nobody is, eyes roll back in the head and nobody knows what's going on. What is she talking about?
So where would somebody start?
Yeah, let me think. What do I do? So that is something like the games in that I discuss in my book, like the colored eggs and picking yellow. That's where the food will be, or clicking when the dog touches their nose to yellow and then giving the treat. That becomes more complicated, right? So they have to solve the problem. So if you have 6 eggs of different colors, they should always be going to the yellow, or they should pick the smaller size, or they should find a connection exercise where a treat is on a cloth and they have to connect, and underneath, like a laundry basket, let's say, and they have to connect that the treat is on the cloth, and they have to pull the cloth out. And that can be difficult for some dogs, and very difficult if the dog hasn't been used to problem solving at all. In my classes for coming when called, we put up a maze, and the person goes out of sight and calls their dog, and the dog has to figure out how to get to the person. That's problem solving. These dogs are being mentally tired. It's not just the physical fitness and the physically tiring, there's mental tiring as well. And it's very good exercise even for performance dogs. The performance dogs are getting that mental stimulation so that they mentally tire, but they're also getting the physical stimulation that comes along with that, and they have a job, they have a purpose. And that's really important, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's actually really interesting because I never realized how much sniffing and things like that tires them out.
So,
Right?
oh my God, now my shepherd does nose work. And if we're not going on a walk that day, I'll do like several exercises of nose work, and he's tired for the day. Or if, that's so important, using all of the senses. That's what our dogs really need to do, because that's how they live. That's how they work with life. That's who they are. We try to make them who we are.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
like it's really interesting because I've got these two big girls now, and I started to attach like another long, like I've got this really long leash now. So they have a lot of, and I'm just like the leash juggler kind of thing to make sure it doesn't tangle, right? But it's really funny because they both now have a lot of roaming space.
yeah,
And
good.
it's hilarious. Like we don't actually go further than we used to before. So it's
Mhm.
kind of, we have a bunch of different walks. But like with that really long leash, they both get more time to sniff where they want to sniff until they are done. Because
Yes.
if you have a shorter leash, somebody's always ready to move on and they have to just move on, right? So now with that really long leash, it's like they can just stay back and sniff and they will always pick up by themselves before the end of the leash. So they really both get more time to, and it's hilarious. I really noticed the difference. I come home and they're wiped out,
Yeah. Yeah.
like so much more than they used to. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, it is, and I do the same thing. And I get very good at juggling the long leash. A lot of people aren't good at that, and so they think the flexi leash is the solution to that. But I like to see my dogs run out. The only thing, you might get tangled up, around a tree or something, but then you just maneuver that, and like you said, the dog always knows, keeps walking with you because they know that they have freedom.
Yeah. It's
I
so much
love,
enjoyable for all of us. Like it's really,
if they can't be off leash somewhere, then at least we can do a long line. And then we can influence their behavior through the long line as well. If your dog is reactive and another dog or person shows up or something shows up in the environment. But they should be able to do that unhindered. If they don't like other dogs, they still need to use their senses. They don't have to be with other dogs constantly, right?
yeah.
But they should be having that mental stimulation that they need and require for well-being, just for being a dog.
Yeah, yeah. So I would love you to just kind of like, can you just put your book up again so people we'll obviously put the link to the book in the show notes and below here. So
Behind me, yeah. But yeah, this is the book, and it goes through all of the stages. Actually, the diagram that I just showed you is really what the book's all about. It's the first systematic process to release stress in dogs. And it took me a long time to develop it, where it works over a 3-day period. And then the rest of the book tells why. Okay, tells why it works and how it works.
wow, that's
Yeah,
quick.
examples, but if you follow that particular circular pathway, in the order that it's written, and it works like a charm, because a dog is getting that sleep, they're getting sensory, they're playing with their toys, they're getting the physical stimulation and exercise and problem solving that they need, as well as nutrition, health benefits, and it teaches the person to check waste, for example, or even pH urine. Um, Simple things that we can do to make sure that our dogs are in good physical health, and that isn't interfering with their behavior.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So we'll definitely pop the link. I'm sort of like, where my mind's going. I'm just like, I bet it's probably not that different from what we do to to release stress, right?
It is very similar. We can do more things than dogs can. And the difference is that we can implement it for ourselves. The dogs don't know how to implement it. They're just responding in the moment, or what they were taught and what they know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it can be very similar for people. We do yoga, we relax, take a nap, we run, we jog, we need things too, and we need to read books and work and all of that to release stress. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because when you think about like, yeah, we both get stressed and there's so many things we're so similar in so many ways, right?
Yes, we are very much. I mean, we breathe, we feel things, we feel touch, and
Mm.
all of the senses are activated. There are certain things that are different, like the intestines are shorter than ours, and so on and so forth. They don't have a good frontal lobe as we do, so that's why they're not planning for retirement and sitting at the table and paying mortgage and things like that. But they have their own little world, don't they? Yeah, and we have to understand that because we don't always listen to our dogs.
Mm. Yeah,
Body
so true.
language is so important, and they talk with their eyes and their nose and their barks, and they can think your thoughts before you think that, or while you're thinking them. At least my Shepherd and my Belgian and my Aussie can. They kind of know me too well.
Yeah,
So
no, totally same here. Same here. It's like I've made experiments out of this, especially this one. Like he passed last April, like he was extreme. Mr. Sensitive was so extreme. He would I mean, first of all, like he would always know when I come home, like well before it would be reasonable to think that he could hear it,
yeah,
so like that. And sometimes like I'd be sitting there and thinking, okay, I'm gonna, do this and then I'm going out for a walk. And he'd be like, what? We're going for what? And it was like, I know for sure I've not moved, right? Because if I grab the bag or if I put the shoes on or what, some sign, then you'd be like, yeah, that's obvious. But literally, I would make a point of not moving. And it's
yeah.
like, he knew. Like the moment I thought the thought, or sometimes just before, he knew. And the other
He's
two kind of know it as well, but like he was quite extreme.
he's still new. They're very intuitive in that way. And that's why it scares me that people use pain to train, because you don't know what you're dealing with internally. A dog is not coping properly, and you're just adding more pain to pain. That makes no sense. Um, so really listening to the dog, what they need, having a system in place so that you know what you're doing. When I'm training clients, I always have a system in place that they must follow. Um, and then they get to where they're going quite quickly. And if they start with stress release, I don't have as many lessons to do with them because the dog is in a learning state. I used to do 15 sessions before the development of the stress release program. But now if I do a stress release program, you're talking 3 to 6, maybe. It cuts it in half for behavioral problems. And then it's just maintenance and management, right? And being intuitive to the 3 Ds, which are distance, duration, and distractions. Which we always should be anyway. Even with my quote normal dogs, I am always paying attention to those things because there might be things that they're not comfortable with also. I can't assume that they're perfect because there's no perfect dog. Just like there's no perfect person, except you.
You've not seen me on a lead.
I'm there.
But I mean, I think it's that listening. I mean, the starting point is even like slowing down and paying attention to the dog in front of you, right? I think it's so often it's like, oh, the dog needs to do this and sit and plats and and that's all there is to it. And nobody asks like if the dog's barking, if the dog's anxious, like what's going on?
People are so obsessed with making the dog do what they want them to do that they sacrifice learning who that dog is. And we do it with people too. You're trying to think of your next sentence before the person has even stopped talking. Yeah. And you're not paying attention to the person or really what they're trying to relay to you. And that's so very important when you're dealing with people as well.
For sure. I always say our dogs are our wisest teachers. Like, anything we learn there, we can take anywhere else in life and it'll be valuable, right?
For sure. Yeah. Lots of
So
science.
yeah, for sure, yeah. So where can people go find out, get the book, find out more about you, work
Yeah.
with you? Where's the best place to find you?
The book is available in most places where books can be found, like Amazon, and I like to send people to bookbaby.com and to the bookstore. And then all they have to do is look up the title or put my name in and buy from there. And often I'm having coupons for reduction in pricing at times, so for them to watch for that type of thing. And then you can contact me, and I'm very open to answering questions all the time at info@caninetlc.com. And or my regular email is my last name, Garrod, at widbey.com, WHIDBEY.com. Either way. And then I have a Facebook business page, which is facebook.com/CTLC3. And a lot of followers, a lot going on in there. And then if you would like to join the canine stress release, the detox program, I have a group for that as well. It's just called the Canine Emotional Detox. So you can join that on Facebook. I have force-free trainers dealing with aggression. That's on Facebook as well. And my website. And my website. So there's a contact form in my website, and that is caninetlc.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Easy to find you, and highly recommend get the book and check her out. Thank you so much for coming. I think you're right. We could talk dogs all day long, and
Yes.
we'll find another opportunity to talk more.
Okay, and I just want to mention one thing, if I can, before
Absolutely.
I'm doing a second edition of the book, which will be more in depth and cover all of those pieces more thoroughly. And also my resource guarding, 60 days from guarding to sharing is done and will be out hopefully by the end of the year. So lots of things to look forward to.
Awesome. We're gonna have to have you back for that. So for sure. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, @soultouchedbydogs.com.